This story occurs in 2002, Cameroon, Central Africa. I am a WF44, but at the time I was 20 years old. I was still at university doing an undergrad master's degree in psychology at a top English university. I don't believe in religion. Today I have faith in a higher power that religions call belief, but I still don't believe in religion. For me, all paranormal experiences are explainable by understanding the brain. Basically, I did not believe in ghosts and I did not believe in belief from the Bible, the Torah, or the Quran. So I traveled to Cameroon for just shy of a month as my uncle, who had worked his entire career for one of the massive petroleum groups in Africa, had decided to make Cameroon his home and marry a Nigerian woman. I went there to represent the family as a way to welcome her into the mix. At the time, I had been to South Africa, but never to Central Africa. As a side note, I experienced many crazy stories whilst I was there, but the one I'm sharing today is one I actively want your opinions of. Halfway through the trip, we were heading up north to the Savannah Desert, but we stopped in the capital Yaoundé for one night to pick up things you need for desert camping/travel, and as a last luxury before sleeping in desert camps, we booked a night at the Hilton Hotel. That night, I fell asleep late, a bit anxious about going into the desert for 2 weeks with good reason it turns out. At some point whilst I was sleeping, I suddenly couldn't breathe. I was gasping for air in my dream, which woke me. And guess what? I still couldn't breathe awake. Within a second of waking up, becoming alert and frantic, because I couldn't breathe, I saw a very clear image of a very old, sun-worn African woman who was hovering over me. She was made up/formed of a kind of white mist or smoke. She was so close to me, I would guess about 8-10 inches away from my face. I could see her so clearly, every minute detail about her. Her hair, she still had lots of it, but it hadn't been brushed and looked very dry. It was a gray, white. She has so many forehead wrinkles, and her skin was bleak and white/gray. You could tell she was African from her bleak features. She was so skinny. Her face was so large in comparison to her frail body, which also wasn't complete. She had no legs. The white smoke or mist trailed off. Her eyeballs were white and, although no pupils, her look was one of forceful determination. I couldn't breathe because there was some white smoke or mist, same as what she was made up of, going from my mouth to hers as if she was bleep away my life force. As I saw her, I suddenly understood and was 100% aware of the situation. I utterly freaked out and started trying to move. I was so terrified of her and totally at the same time of knowing I couldn't compute what was going on and why I couldn't move. This went on for about 3 seconds before she stopped. I felt she was annoyed because I was fighting her/fighting against it, and she glided to the end of my bed whilst I was staring at her, keeping an eye on where she was, and started taking in large panic breaths. As she reached the end of my bed, I was able to reach over and switch on the bedside table lamp. As I did, I watched her evaporate. I don't know if it was my eyes, but I swear I still saw the left side of her white body disappearing as the light went on. The lamp was on my right, so it's as if I still saw her from the corner of my left eye, but it was probably half a second. I did not sleep the rest of the night. I was tired, unmotivated, and lethargic, and I had signs of depression for the next 2 years. The next morning, I joined my uncle and new aunt on the hotel rooftop where they served breakfast. My uncle asked me why I looked so tired, and I told him. He snorted, laughing at me, and called over the local waiter. He said he wanted a refund for my night since I had been attacked by a ghost. He was quite rude, dismissive of everyone, and I still don't know if he was being serious or sarcastic. The waiter shrugged his shoulders, said that they had warned the hotel builders that they had chosen a burial site to build the hotel, that it was sacred ground and the hotel was cursed. He said he wasn't surprised, and then he walked away. The whole table was in shock. Me, because perhaps it actually happened, my uncle, because he had been dismissed by the waiter, and my aunt, because she was heavily religious and had no idea how to process this information. Here is the twist. When you go to Africa, you need to take medicine for malaria. Sometimes, rarely, that medicine can cause hallucinations. Now, I was in Africa for a month. Supposedly, if we go with the medication explanation as being the reason for my experience, perhaps I would have hallucinated more than just that once at the exact time and place which I was told after was cursed. Possibly, it takes time for the medication to have an effect, so if it hadn't affected me before, it should have again after. Also, the medicine affects a small amount of patients with hallucinations, so technically it shouldn't have entered my sleep in a physical manner, as well as awake, and had a physical effect on me across both states. For 20 years, I just justified it to myself as the medicine, ignoring the other possibilities. But today, with my new understandings in science, I'm open to considering it as a true ghost experience, as an important afterthought. 2 years later, I went to an adult's baptism DM of a friend in the south of London. They're an African couple, white and in their 50s, from South Africa. Came up to me. The husband wouldn't look at me and whispered something to his wife. She said my husband speaks to Bleep and he knew. When you came into the church we had to find you. He says Bleep has a message for you. Her husband whispered to her once more and then she repeated out loud, he says don't worry, he is with you now, just as he was when you were a ping pong. He doesn't know what that means, but he says it will mean something to you. This couple had no idea who I was, never met me, had never even seen me as I arrived at the church late and was sitting in the back row. They were somewhere in front 5. I had been to a restaurant named Ping Pong in the north of London in the previous Tuesday night with my brother's godfather. Someone in a city population of 9 million people knew where I had been, when I went, and with who. Of course, there is always the possibility they could have randomly been sat next to us, but how and why that message? How would he have recognized me in an instant, and why this random message and then walk away? Not asking for anything? Again, I put this down to psychology, like a hypnosis that cleared a psychological blockage. Anyway, from that day, something had been changed for the better. My depression had been lifted, I changed my life, moved country, and had a beautiful and unique next 22 years. What are your thoughts? Do you believe? Do any of you have explanations? Does anyone have a similar story?